Hello everybody and welcome to the Masterclass Screenwriting. Here we are, it's week 2, Narrative, Scripts, and Story. Really excited to be bringing you this masterclass. This is a 4-week session. We're going to explore different types of screenwriting as we introduced last week. And the goal here is that by learning about the different types of writing for different types of media or concepts and so on, we'll get an idea of how we can write for narrative films, for documentary films, and audio podcasts. And then from these, I want to encourage and inspire everyone out there to write, to explore storytelling, and then we want to see you at our upcoming masterclasses where we can get into, in person. We're going to get into production and audio podcasts and so on, and make these things come to life. And I also encourage everyone to use the CreatorSpace equipment. So once again, my name is Tom Sternad. I'm the lead digital artist of the CreatorSpace project. And the CreatorSpace brings digital arts to our different library partners. And I just want to start off by thanking all our partners in this project. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts, and then we have our 3 library partners. So we have the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. And those 3 library partners, that's where you can access the digital arts equipment. So we have iPads available at all the libraries with Final Draft. We also have our iMac digital arts computer stations with Final Draft as well. So this is the screenwriting software that I'll be getting into a little bit more again today. So that's the really exciting thing. So you can go there, you can write, but we can take you right through. So then we have digital arts equipment. So you can take out a video camera, you can take out a photo camera, you can go and capture things. You can take out audio recorders, so you can capture audio podcasts. And if you haven't, we're going to be getting into some sound workshops tomorrow. If you haven't signed up for them yet, go to tbmcs.ca, check out our workshops, and we have recording voiceover and sound effects that's coming up tomorrow. And then if you have done a production, we have some great video editing workshops coming up next week, narrative editing, and then we have documentary editing. So these kind of longer sessions that really delve into the structure and how-tos of editing to get you started right away in those formats. So if you've written a script, we have all the tools so for you to go to the libraries, write the scripts, and then go from there. So today we're going to be looking at the narrative script format. So this is the fictional, this is the dramatic side, this is non-factual, so this is fictional. And that's the whole thing. So now in fictional, we can also have the idea that, things can be based on real people. It can be based on true stories. We see that a lot in films, based on a true story. And so, but it's still fictional because you're still creating characters, you're creating moments. And as much as we like to try to be true to what happened and through the words or through the books or the written memoirs of somebody that's a relative, or it may be deceased, but their own memoirs, there's always going to be that kind of dramatic, embellishment that you need to create something more in the story. And this comes down to story structure, because as human beings, from way back when Greek mythology, that was the original fictional storytelling, is having these myths that could take people through a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and get people to understand what it is that, these gods and heroes and all of this, the good, the dark, the good, the bad, the evil, the light. And we have these ongoing today. So, if you're watching the, different Star Wars series, the Book of Boba Fett is out right now, and you're seeing the same kind of mythological structure. And it's just a mini series that's taking us through those same ideas of beginning, middle, and end, building to a big conflict, climax, and then a resolution of some sort, or it could be a cliffhanger to make you watch the next series or the next part of it. So same kind of idea. So, we're used to these big films, but we're also, the same ideas apply to the smallest film. If you want to make a short that's a few minutes, that's the whole idea. So today I'm going to showcase a script and then the production of what the script is like. So this was done as a kind of a promotional short, but it is a very, very short. So it's I think it's a minute, if I recall correctly, or 30 seconds. And essentially it's a short film, a narrative that has a beginning, a middle, and end, and it kind of takes us through that storytelling process. So I'm going to show you the script, and we'll read through it, and then what we'll do too is then look at the actual short film, And then we'll look at some more of the story structure on how to create these a short film. So the goal here is to, I always say, start off with a few pages. Start off with a really short, get through it. You can even think of it if, 2-3 pages. First page could be your introduction, your beginning. Your middle could be page 2, and your end could be page 3. We can keep that structure really simple. And then we expand it out. I think it's a really tough challenge if you say, hey, I want to write a 100-page script right away, a 100-minute film. So what we said last week was that every page is 1 minute of final film. So, and we'll see how that applies roughly. We have a 1-page script that applies to the 1 minute film. So that's really important, these kind of takeaway ideas of what the screenwriting's like. So now, Final Draft, the beauty of it is that software lets you format to screenplay format. And then this is more important for the narrative films. And you could start to maybe use it less, if you will, for the documentary and audio podcasts, but it's a great tool. Why not use it for everything? Again, it comes with our Creator Space project, so our access points through equipment or using the digital arts computers, you can access it there. It's also a low-cost app, so if you have an iPhone, an iOS device, iPad, iPhone, iPod, you can get the Final Draft mobile version, and it's low cost, about $25. And it gives you the same templates and writing features. It's really quite robust, and I quite enjoy writing on an iPad because it's very portable. So you can be anywhere with that and not have to have a big computer with you. And yeah, so that's something really interesting. So let's get right into this. So today we're going to look at story structure, script to screen. So we're going to look at getting that, what does that film look like when we see the film script? What does it look like when we get into it as a recorded final video piece? So we want to look at that kind of that difference. And then screenplay format. We're going to get right into writing and really going through that screenplay format, making sure it's very clear and everyone's ready to write their first short script. And that's going to be the assignment, is to go out after this session and write a short script, 2-3 pages, and get right into that idea of writing a narrative script and moving along in that way. So what is story structure? So we talked about this last week, but I just want to bring it up again. I think this is really important, that story structure, the 3-act story structure. This is the classic story structure that we see to this day. And like I said, from Greek mythology to Shakespeare to any kind of TV show to a Marvel movie to an independent drama, the Academy Award nominated screenplays, anything you're seeing out there is using this 3-act structure. Now, you might see things, a creative writing can also flip things around. I've seen films that flip the structure around, that you actually see what you think is the climax earlier on in the film. So we've seen this in films where maybe like our hero dies very early on and we're kind of left with that void. But then we realize that was kind of a sub-story, and the real story is the investigation into what happened or the new friendships that emerge from that. And then we realize, okay, that was kind of a sub-story. But, there's that whole idea. Sometimes you kill off a character very early. And that happens a lot in some films where, you think someone's in it and they get killed off really early on. It subverts the expectations of the story structure and the screenplay that you think where it's going to go. And all of a sudden you think you're seeing the ending early on. And, a lot of films have been structured that way. Sometimes it's done that way intentionally, where you can see the ending first, and then you go back in time, flashbacks, to bring us back to that point. So that could be something as well. How do you hook an audience into a script? If you show someone, and that's very classic for like murder kind of films, murder mystery films, you see what happened, but you don't really know who did it, and it's a whodunit. Because then the whole point of the film, the story, is to figure out who did it, why they did it, and how it came to be. So that's something really interesting, is that you can put the end in the beginning. So what is this again? The 3-act structure. Inciting Incident. So we have our Act 1, establishing act. Now, lengthwise, this kind of comes to, I would say, 20%, 40, 50% Act 2, and then 20-30% at the end, to about 100%. So if you think of it, if it's a 100-page script, you're probably Act 1 establishing is about 20-25 pages. Act 2, you're looking at about maybe 40 to 50 pages, and Act 3, 25, 35 pages, or it could be a lot shorter. You can have an Act 2 build-up that's very intense and longer and so on. And that's roughly it. It can be very equal too. You can say, I'm going to write 33 pages, 33 pages, 33 pages. That could work just as well. That's why I say if you're writing a 3-page script, which I want to challenge everyone to do, you can say page 1 is going to be Act 1, page 2 is going to be Act 2, page 3 will be Act 3. Now what happens in each of these acts, and this is the key, the 3-act story structure, inciting incident. Something has to start us to move and propel the story going forward. Something happens. And it can be quite magnificent. It could be something very simple. It could be something mundane. It could be something extraordinary. But the point is something happens to move the story ahead. And different filmmakers and screenplay and writers take this idea differently. So sometimes there's the really big inciting incident. There's a scientists discover that a comet is going to hit the Earth, inciting incident. That's huge, establishing that's what's going to happen. So then the midpoint rising action, so plot point 1 is going to kind of switch over from Act 1 to Act 2. Plot point 1, we start to realize the world learns of this secret and something has to be done about it. Act 2, it's going to be about what will the world do to combat this spiraling meteor that is going to hit the Earth. Midpoint rising action, some sort of solution is realized and and it's carried out. They're going to send some explosives to this meteor. Plot point 2, the explosives fail, and it shifts the meteor to go further dead center to the Earth. So now this rising action is happening. Act 3, the meteor is actually the attempt to stop it has actually made it worse. It's going to hit dead center, send the Earth on some bad trajectory that everyone will die on the Earth. Act 3, resolution, what's going to happen? So it keeps building. A new solution is figured out, or maybe just naturally this meteor is kind of veers off course slightly, and what was to be doesn't happen, or there's a new solution. Climax, the new solution, something happens, or it could be very dark, and it's just really the climax is this meteor hitting the Earth, and what will happen? Everyone prepares for the final days and so on. So very interesting. That's a great kind of standard, simple, that kind of the kind of thriller, sci-fi type production. So that's what's happening there, and I think that's quite interesting. So that that's the one way to do it, and the other way is we can an inciting incident can also be something really simple. The inciting incident can be as simple as someone finds a diary in a drawer of a motel that they're staying in. And that's it. Inciting incident, there's this mysterious diary. What does it mean? They start to read and they discover more. This character discovers more about something that maybe happened in this motel in the past. And it doesn't have to be anything tragic. Maybe it's just something very nice. And there's just like memories of something nice that happened in the motel. Maybe, someone on their way to a wedding and they had some notes of how happy they are for their sister getting married and so on. And then, plot point 1, maybe they start to realize that this is actually someone they know or a relative, and it kind of switches things. So then it's rising. They're trying to figure out why is this diary here? And, builds and builds and builds. Plot point 2, maybe the person discovers that, this person is a lost relative, and they actually never made it to the wedding. And so now they want to try to figure out who this, what happened and so on. And again, just kind of building climax. They realize what happened, and the person, they managed to tell the sister that this other sister did try to make it. Something happened, she's missing, and they don't know what happened to her, but she wasn't able to make the wedding, and it's kind of a resolution that sister was always angry with her sister who missed her wedding, but this person stumbles upon it. It's another relative, some distant cousin, just happens to, this weird fate of staying in the same hotel, and it all comes together. And that's kind of a nice story. It's not, a deadly story, but it comes to a resolution that it isn't necessarily, it's not necessarily that big good versus evil, but there is some drama in that the the sister goes missing, and that's that kind of idea. So take any kind of story you want to do and break it down into that. You should always be able to have a clear 3-act structure. Even if it's one page, there's still an introduction, a building point, and a resolution. And that's, I think, really key, is that nothing is too short that, it can't have these structural points in it. It could be, 1 page, 3 pages, 300 pages. Whatever your script is will, benefit from having this kind of a clean story structure. And this is what's expected. And again, like I said, you can flip things around. Place Beyond the Pines flips this kind of structure totally around, where we see like lead characters die in like, the first act. And it flips it around, what you'd expect to be Act 3. But, this is where you get into award-winning screenwriting, where you take these conventions and start to flip them around and play with them. But what I really advise is, if you're starting in screenwriting and writing your first narrative film, really consider the fact that it's great to practice these ideas and not get into something that's necessarily overly restructuring or flipping these ideas around. Practice the rules. Once you know the rules, then it's time to start playing with the rules, breaking the rules, realigning the rules, and creating new ideas of story structure. But I think it's a really great activity and a great learning lesson to go through a screenplay, write it, a narrative fictional screenplay, with this story structure, the 3-act story structure. Really get into that, do that first, and then once you feel comfortable with that story structure and that you've really, harnessed how to do that and you understand how to do it, then it's great to move on and say, okay, I want to play around with that. And again, with a short, there's some great opportunities to play around with, Act 3 starts the film, we get Act 1, Act 2, brings us back to like a kind of shortened Act 3. So, it's a great way to do it. It can also be, you can be right in the middle of a film. Sometimes people do that. They just write and throw you right in the middle. You're on this train and the character's trying to jump off the train. We don't know how they ended up on the train. Why are they jumping off? We're thrown right into the middle of the action. And that's really exciting, watching it as an audience, because you don't know what's going on. And that's the first question. What's going on here? What's happening? Right in the middle of the action. And then we can go back to like an Act 1 and figure out more. But it's not necessarily an Act 3. This is kind of a rising action in this train sequence. So you can start with the middle. And I've seen that too, and that can work quite well. So again, we have these rules. Start with this structure, and then we can really play around with the rules later and move things around. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let me get right into. I have this script sample here. I'm just going to open it up here. Let me go full screen here. Okay, so I have this PDF. And this is a short script. Take me to the drive-in. Okay. And it's a couple pages, and it ends up being a 60-second film. So we'll watch that after. So here's the basic structure. Okay, so we have interior Cadillac day. A black leather gloved hand turns on the ignition. A right gloved hand shifts the gear into drive. So this is really specific, but you get this idea. These are like the shots. So if you start thinking of, as you write, as each line can, it can be shots. You can think of it that way too. And I think that's very effective. I've seen a lot of writers do it that way, where you think about each line can be, a specific shot as you're going. Okay, so moving on. A right gloved hand touches the play button. We hear music, a Spanish 50s vibe song. Okay, again, some audio cues telling the audience, this is what we're gonna do. So you can visualize we're in this Cadillac, ignition, shifts the gear into drive, play button, we hear music. Exterior Cadillac. So now we've gone from the inside of the Cadillac, now we're exterior. So this is important. I'm now telling the audience that in this film, we're now outside of the Cadillac. The front tire spins forward and away. From the front of the hood, we see reflections of sunlight, shops, and other cars. Okay, so that's the exterior. Notice now we go to INT. We go right here to interior Cadillac day. Leather gloves grip the steering wheel as music plays on. So we're inside. Exterior, we jump back outside. So this is what's called essentially cross-cutting, inside, outside, taking the audience inside the car, there's action, but outside, so we see where the car is driving, establish where we are, and that's the establishing part. So exterior Cadillac day, the Cadillac drives down the main strip. Interior Cadillac day, from the rearview mirror, the driver applies lipstick. So this is kind of our plot point one. We're kind of going to get into the midpoint now. Okay, so this driver, we don't know who they are, but now they're applying lipstick. Okay, so we're starting to get a little more information. Exterior main strip. So now we're outside in this town's main strip. The Cadillac pulls over next to a man wearing a Letterman jacket. The horn honks 3 times. So now we've changed. We're into this kind of midpoint action where the car is finally interacting with someone else, a man wearing a Letterman jacket. The man turns around and then back at the car. Interior Cadillac day. A leather-gloved right hand pushes open the passenger side door. The index finger does a come here motion. So now we're back inside the car, seeing out to the passenger, to the man outside. Exterior main strip. The man points at himself. I should also mention it says day, so we're not in the night, so we're clear that this is daytime. Interior Cadillac day. So now we're page 2. So this runs a little bit more than a page, but ends up being a minute. A woman nods her head and taps on the seat next to her. The man runs in and slams the door behind him. Okay, so he enters. Now that they're together in the same car. Okay, so that's kind of the plot point 2. He's in the car. Exterior main strip dates. Now we're getting into the third act. So we're getting into what's going to happen. They're now together. Where are they going? The tires of the Cadillac pull away. Exterior main strip. Interior Cadillac dusk. So the time has passed and we're moving towards the climax here. From the back seat, we see the man stare at the woman. She adjusts her rearview mirror and checks her lipstick. The main strip turns to a field. So they're like pulling into a field. The car pulls up to a drive-in movie theater. On the screen, we see the logo, Meaford International Film Festival. So this is where they are. They're in this field for a drive-in. Exterior Cadillac dusk. The car is surrounded by 50s cars and a large drive-in movie screen. So now we know where they ended up. So it's kind of a play on, American Graffiti, working in a car. We slowly establish what's going on, revelations, and then we get to this climax that where were they going the whole time? We think maybe they're up to some mischief or something. No, they're gonna just go to a drive-in and watch a movie. So it's kind of a play on expectations, and we resolve it in this manner, and that's how we get to it there. So that's, I think, a little bit of, it's an interesting script, and it lets us move along in that direction where you expect one thing and then we go into something else. Okay, so what does this look like? I have it pulled up here. Let me just get the screening file ready. Okay, let me just back it up here. Just going to pull up the file so we can watch it here. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to put on the audio and it will be able to watch. Okay, there we go. So that's the film. Now, what is the overall length of it? Just going to escape here. And so the total length of it is 33 seconds. So that script, about a page and a half was compressed into 33 seconds. Now, I think what's important here is, how did it change? So we have very similar to the script, a little bit of an extra ending moment. Things change a little bit in production. I think that's important, that you'll see it was written one way, very close to the script. And I think that's important to show that blueprint's pretty close. And then you make some adjustments based on what's happening in the location, and we'll get into the production side of it. But as writers, we can imagine anything, we can do anything, because there's no cost on the paper. But if you're also going to be producing it, directing it, you want to start to think about, okay, what is the cost of making something like this? can I actually do this? Like, so if you have, like that meteor example, it's a big visual effects heavy film. It's maybe not something that you can take on as a filmmaker if you're going to make it as well. But you could just be writing scripts. So you're writing scripts to try to sell and an option, and someone else will make the film. So that's totally a great career path where you can just be writing scripts and seeking to sell them and whatever story you want to tell. So we don't have to worry so much about the budget if you're just kind of freelance and you want to tell these great stories, whatever they are. Big, massive, $300 million sci-fi mega films, or maybe they're, really simple $100,000 indie narrative dramatic film. So the thing is, if you want to also be, writer director, then sometimes you have to think about that too. Now this is a challenge because the creative challenge is how much time do you want to spend thinking about your budgetary restraints versus, just making what you want to make. So in this case, this was an idea of this kind of a short film for a film festival that becomes like a commercial, but it's really a short film in its essence. And, making sure that when we were writing it, that it could be done and achieved and how we can make it work. So this was understanding the types of locations, understanding what can be achieved, and kind of working within a framework that's doable to execute as a production. So that's kind of important if you're a writer director, you want to think about what can you achieve and, not put too much of a restriction on what you're writing, but also just think about what's reasonable. So if a writer director, I'm probably not going to do the big meteor film, but that motel diary film could definitely be achieved. That's something that I'd be like very comfortable. Okay, this is not a big budget film, but this is a strong narrative film. So that's something to think about, what kind of impact or what kind of activity you want to do in terms of your film. But again, we can see some of the differences. We have a bit of a different ending. They're sitting there. She puts her hand out. He's kind of surprised, right? So we kind of put this little bit of an extra funny comedic ending. And that was something that we came up with, the director came up with on the spot, and it changed it up a little bit. And that's great. So those are the little changes, and I think there's the nuances. You'll notice that a lot of it, the same ideas, like the glove, the music, the car driving, interior, exterior, applying the lipstick, that scene with him getting in the car, pretty much executed how it was written. And as I said it and I read it out to what you saw as a script, you might have envisioned something different. And this is the fun part. You kind of read a script and you envision one thing, and then you watch what the film is, and then you see something different. And that's really exciting. We don't always get that opportunity. In this case, you probably hadn't seen that before, so you got to read a script and then see how it comes to life. Sometimes too, if there's a big film coming out and you can read the script of it first, it's a really great exercise to see how it was written. Then you watch the film after and you kind of see how it was adapted from the script. This goes for the same if you read a book and a film is based on a book. It's really exciting to read the book because the film is going to be very different than the book. It's impossible to capture usually a 300-page book into a 100-page script. So that's really exciting too, where you can read that book and then see the film, and it gives you a good idea of a similar idea to screenplay to book. So this is the art of writing, and then it comes to life. But you can see that writing with shots in mind, that kind of idea, if you start to think of it visually, as writers, I think that's really important to understand the visual language, understand, sound, understand roughly, where we need to be inside and outside, and you can start to think filmically. And that's really important as a screenwriter, to think of it as a film and how it's going to piece together. It's not just a written script. It needs to be visually coming to life and told in a visual manner. This film had no dialogue. And I think that's why I wanted to show it as an example that you don't have to have a lot of dialogue. You don't even have to have people. You can be writing a story that's just, a car driving around, and that could be it, where we never see the person at all, and that could be totally a story. So don't be afraid to write something without dialogue. I think that's a great challenge, and it can be really fun. It's a great way to start in the filmmaking process. And then we'll see how next week we're going to see how this kind of differs with going into the documentary world, and we'll start to get into the treatments and things like that. So screenwriting, I'm just going to get back into opening up Final Draft here. So Final Draft 12, it's just opening up this Final Draft script. And this is what we were working on last week. And again, just, what does this look like? So, same, what we do here, exterior coffee shop day. This was our scenario last week. A large lightning bolt strikes a tree directly outside the coffee shop. And then you can see we go interior. A man sits at a windowside table. He jumps back as the bolt causes the tree to glow. Holy crap, that was close. But you can see, again, we don't even necessarily need the dialogue. We can write it without dialogue as an example, going back into it. So then, what happens next? We can go, just as we write, we go exterior, and you can see now coffee shop shows up, the proper spelling in it. I think I spelled it wrong earlier. Day, right? We always just put in day, and I can say a dozen people sitting on the patio scramble to grab their coffee and pastries as heavy rain pours down on them. Right, so we go back outside, what's happening there? And you can see how we're cross-cutting here, interior, exterior, and this is a very common screenwriting idea. And then what do we do next? So again, these are the scene headings, descriptions, character, name in the middle, dialogue, scene heading, description. Next I go INT, interior. You can see again, coffee shop, it has the smart type option, so it just brings up things that I already want to do. The dozen people push their way in, and the small inside seating area becomes a busy standing room only type situation. So really try to always, that was the whole idea, is show, don't tell, right? So I'm trying to write what you'll see visually versus just telling you. And then I can get into, okay, Henry's not going to be happy, right? And we keep going. So that's it. That's like my intro, plot point one. These people run in, right? Now I'm going to have, continue with that. To a woman next to him. Just to identify where he's going, do you mind? Woman bag is pushing over his coffee. It nears the edge. Splat. The coffee pours onto Henry's lap. He jumps up but is quickly pushed back down with another man's large backpack that is hovering over his head. Right, so you can see this kind of action. He gets, coffee's poured on him. This is getting kind of a nuisance. What's he gonna do? And this was that idea that we had, this lightning bolt. Oops. Day. The lightning bolt transforms into a large circular ball of fire and jumps from the tree to the metal fire sprinkler pipe on the side of the shop window. Oops. Okay, so now you can see the lightning has jumped ship. It's entering the coffee shop, right? Then we jump back in, interior, coffee shop. The ball of fire travels across the ceiling. Dozen people scream. Push their way out of the shop. The small front door causes a major traffic jam as people from the back push the people at the front through the door. Man with an apron carries a large white mug with coffee over to Henry. Man with apron. This one's on the house. Okay, so there we go. People ran in. His coffee gets spilled all over his lap. He struggles. He gets pushed down. It's comedic. The lightning comes in. It scares everyone. They push to get back out. Henry gets a new coffee. Order's restored. And that's it. So that's our beginning. Henry's established. He's inside. He's happy. There's lots of space. The plot point shifts to lightning. Strikes outside. Everyone on the patio runs in. Fills the space. Makes Henry's life miserable. The lightning comes in. Plot point 2. The lightning comes in, chases everyone basically out. They push their way out. The climax, Henry gets a fresh new mug of coffee, and Henry smiles as he takes a long sip from the mug. Henry sits alone at the table. We see dozens of people running in heavy downpouring rain outside. That's it. And that's our ending. So it's just kind of that going back and forth, and it's a real fun story. So that's how we can really get into that. So again, scene headings, interior, exterior, characters, describing the action, and story structure. So we have that beginning, middle, and end. And I think that's it. That's really the key thing. Then you just save this. I'm just going to save this, and that is our script. And from there, we're ready to work in screenwriting. So again, we have our three act structure, short film. So this is what I challenge everyone to do. Write that, just a short 2-3 page 3-act structured short film. You can use Final Draft. Feel free to use it through our library partners or get an iPad from the library partner, or you can use any kind of word processing. Just follow the same formatting as you can see that in what I've displayed there. You can rewatch this session, and I just want to thank again all our partners in making this possible. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts, then we have our library partners, Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. And remember, you can access the computers and with Final Draft and the iPad, different iPads with Final Draft at all three library partners, and and explore this writing idea. So that's what I challenge you. That's what I like to assign everyone. Go and write this 2 to 3 page script idea, 3-act structure. Keep it really short and simple. Get through it, and you'll see that it's a lot of fun. It's a challenge to sometimes write something shorter, and then once you've really master that. Think about how you would shoot it, breaking it down to shots. Visualize. Think about what it will look like. I think that's the real key thing here as we're writing, narrative films. Think about what it will look like as a film, and how it will translate to the visual medium of film, because every sentence can be thought of as a shot or different shots in there. What will we hear? Making different. You can have notes in of music, as you saw in the script example of Take Me to the Drive-In, where it had music elements. We hear this music, the radio goes on, squealing tires, all that kind of stuff is outlined. So that's a lot of fun to outline what something will also sound like, and not just what it will look like, right? So we can put those kind of sound notes in there as well. So yeah, that's it for this week's session. So next week we're going to get right into the documentary writing and structure and treatment. Again, we'll look at a treatment versus a film that can be produced, and see kind of how it translates from ideas. And the difference is because it becomes quite different. This is the idea of narrative screenwriting is one thing, but then how do we use the same kind of tools at our disposal to start thinking about a documentary? And what we'll find is there's a lot of similarities, and I think that's really of interest, that there are so many similarities that you can start to look at it as very it's a very important and constructive activity to do, is to start even with narrative, even if you want to do documentary, because you'll start to think of the different ideas of how to write shots and sound for a documentary, and then you can make the documentaries more cinematic. And you can see a lot of the documentaries now, they're very they use a lot of the same tools as you would apply to narrative filmmaking. So it's really great to see that and see how that can work. So again, thanks again everyone for joining us. Again, you can watch this recorded session, the same link, and next week the same link you can access that you have from our Eventbrite for week 3, where we're going to get into documentary treatment writing. So thanks again for joining us. Have a great rest of the day, and I will see you next week. All the best.